Hello and welcome to Wilcom's video short series for Embroidery Studio E4.0. Today I'm going to show you how to go in and use basic pathing, digitizing for a design. And this video is for beginners. And so what we're going to do is the process of being able to digitize a design without the use of the conversion tools is important, because when the time that the conversion tool does not work the way that you plan, or does not give you the quality that you're looking for, you may have to go in and manually digitize the design. And if the design is really complex, if you're just beginning, it's better to just send it out to a professional digitizer and have them do it. If you find a digitizer, find one who has Wilcom, that uses Wilcom, and when they send you the files, they can send you the EMB files, because that's the master copy that you want to save anyway. So keep that in mind. I have a bug that I loaded on the screen here, and we're just going to do, when you go in and you open up your program and you import your designs, one of the first things that you're going to do once you get it centered, and usually when it comes in it may be off to the side like this, what I usually do is I usually navigate to my position X and Y here, and I'll change the X and Y to 0, and that will in fact center my design. Press enter on the page, and once you've done that, I'm going to press K, or you can right click here and choose lock. It does the same thing to lock that image on the screen so it doesn't move, and you'll see a little lock tab here indicating that it's locked. So what we're going to do in the process of digitizing, I want you to think about something like this. We have a little ladybug here, and basically when you start digitizing, you'll digitize it in the order that it is in real life. And what I mean by that is you'll be digitizing in layers. And when we talk about layers, whether you're using graphics or thread, you have a background, you have a middle ground, and you have a foreground. And we're only going to use just a few of our tools here for this job. We have a column B stitch that we're going to use, and we have a column C stitch that we're going to use, and we're going to use the tatami stitch here also. So those are the tools that we're going to use for this class today, just basic digitizing. I know that you have a lot of icons on your screen, but when it comes to the digitizing portion of it, I want you to focus on just these 3 items here right now. And so as I look at the bug, the first thing that I'm going to ask myself is, what's in the furthest, what's in the background, what's furthest from me as I'm looking at this? And I instantly will say that, well, the legs are on the bottom, so they're the closest thing to the floor, and also the antenna and the head. Okay, so again, you're working in 3 positions: background, middle ground, and foreground. Okay, if you can imagine that. And so what I see here also is I see symmetry. I see circles that are the same size, and I see legs over here that are the same as the ones that are on the other side over here, or can be. Okay, and so whenever I see that, that lets me know that I could either copy and duplicate those things as I'm working with them. Right now, as I go in, again, using just these 3 items here for digitizing. So I'm going to go in. I'm looking here also, and I'm seeing that these legs here, they're the same width from start to finish. And whenever you see that, same as this one, whenever you see that, that means that you can use the column C stitch. It's designed to where it starts and finishes, and it's the same width from start to finish. So that's the type of stitch that I'll use for areas like this. I'll use my complex fill stitch for wide fill areas like this, because that's what they're used for. And I can use satin stitches for areas like this, and I can use running stitches for areas like this. So again, we're going to add the running stitch also. We'll use the running stitch, column B, column C, and the complex fill. Okay, we'll start. I'll go in, I'll navigate, and I could always go in and change my colors later. So I'm going to click here on color number 15, and I'm going to go in. So I'll start on this side, and what I'm going to do now in the puzzle here is, how do I get to the other side without doing a trim on the machine? Because it takes a trim on the machine about 6 to 10 seconds. So I'm going to start on this side, and this is how I'm going to digitize this. I'll start with my column C stitch with my roller on my mouse. I'm going to roll it forward. I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to go right down the center of this. And this is what you'll do also. Once I finish that, I'm going to press enter, and I want you to pay attention to your prompt bar here. That's going to be your best friend. Okay. And if you don't watch the prompt bar, you will be in for some long days. So just make sure that when you're digitizing, it's either asking you something or telling you what to do. Once I press enter, it wants me to give a width, so I can zoom in here, and I'll go 1 and 2, and it goes in and it fills that area in. Okay. Next, I have to get from this object here to this object and keep the needle on the fabric. And whenever you do that, you need a bridge to connect these two islands together here. So the bridge that we'll use is that running stitch. Okay, so I'll run from here to here, and I'm going to press enter to stop. Okay. Now, if I press my space bar, it will toggle, or it should toggle back to my column C stitch here while I'm in the digitizing process. So I'll click here. I'm going to go straight, right click, and straight. Now, because I've already entered in a width on the first one, the system remembers what I did, so I can press enter 2 times now to get that to be the exact same width as the first one. And again, as I continue, I'm going to press my space bar, okay, because I have to connect that one also. As I choose my space bar, it goes back to my running stitch, and I'm going to run toward the inside, stop here, and I'm ready to do the last leg on this side. So I'll press enter again. It'll go back to my column C stitch, and I'll go here and I will enter in my points just like this. Very simple. I'm going to press enter once and twice for it to be the same. Okay, if I need to edit anything, I can press escape here, and I can select that item, and I can go to reshape mode by pressing the H's and Harry on my keyboard, and I can use my arrow keys here to move that in a little bit like that. Alright, and one thing to remember also, you have to be sure that you save your designs constantly. Save. Yes, overwrite. So I finished that one, and so I'll go to the other side now. Again, I'll need a bridge to connect from this island to this island. So I'm going to use my running stitch. Again, running underneath. And I'm going to stop here. I'm going to press enter. Now what I can do here is I can actually go in and I can use these legs also on this side by duplicating them. And the way that I'll do that, I'll click on my select tool. I'm going to draw a box around just these legs only. I can see them selected here in my color object list, and I'm going to group them together. I can right click here and group them, or I can scroll down here, group them from my list on the bottom. I see my little group tabs here letting me know that those objects are grouped together, and I'm going to do a Control D to duplicate that. And when I duplicate it, I'm also going to flip it here by using my transform tools. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to click this a second time for my rotation points. Place this Okay, if they're not matching up, basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to ungroup them here, and I'm just going to move them in place just like this. It's the first one. I'll make sure that these are touching as far as the bridges to the other ones here. As I select that, I'm going to press H, where I can grab my node points here from my reshape tool and start here. If I don't want to see the stitches, I can press S to hide the stitches and just select the item here. Click it twice from my rotation tools and go in and kind of move those in place like this. And if you want to see what it looks like, you can press S to show the stitches. Okay, the last one here, I'll do the same thing. I'll click it once and then twice for my rotation tools, and I'll move those into place here. And so I'm going to click save now. So those are done, and I just save this, making sure. Now again, the needle is still on the fabric. Okay, the needle is still on the fabric, and the machine is running. And I'm just going to navigate and kind of move these points here in position there, and I'm going to save that again. So next on my list is I'm going to go in and I'm going to run from the last object that was digitized. Again, I need to run underneath to the antenna here because they're underneath close to the floor. So I'm going to navigate. I'll click on my running stitch here. In the running stitch, I'll go in. Now what I'm going to do with the running stitch here is I'm going to go in, I'll just go in, I'm going to do 2 running stitches, and I'm going to back out the same way I came in and do the same thing here. Right click here, right click, and back out the same way I came in. That's to force it to do a double run stitch. Okay, I'm going to run here, press enter, and next I want to go in and do a stitch using what we call input B. The input B stitch allows you to go in, and as I select this here, making sure that my satin stitch here is selected, make sure that when you go in with this stitch, it allows you to go in and digitize one portion of the object, or 1/2 of it. So I'll start here. If I make a mistake, oops, I can press my backspace key. Okay, so I'll go here, right click, I'm going across the one side first here, and once I finish that side, then I can press enter, and then I can go back and complete the other side like this and press enter. That's what it looks like. Now if I see something, if I see that this is too long, I am going to press my M for measure, and if you press the M for measure, you get a measuring tool here. Now I'm going to use 2 reference points, 1 and 2 here. Now what that's showing me here for that stitch, it's 21.4. That's a very long stitch, and so for that, and I don't want to use what this called the auto split tool. I don't want to use for this. So what I'll do for this, I'll go in, I'll navigate, and I'll change this to my tatami stitch, or I can just go up top here and change that to a tatami stitch like this. And I have my starting point and I have my exit point. Okay, here I can click this. Again, if you click a node point and press your space bar, now if you run across something like this and you're not happy with the shape of it here, you can always go in and you could just select it, delete it, go back to the stitch that I changed it to, which is the complex fill, and this time I'll just go in and I'll just digitize it, because with the complex fill stitch, it is a closed shape object like this. Press enter. Once I press enter, looking at my prompt bar, it's asking for boundary 2. Boundary 2 will always be a donut hole. We don't have one, so we're going to press the enter a second time and enter in our entry point and our exit point. And there's our fill. and I'm going to select it, and I'm going to choose Tatami up top like this. Okay. Next we have the back here, so we're going to go in and do this. With this, you can use your tools to go in and create the perfect circle by navigating over. First, I'm going to click on my vector outline tool here, which is under your outlines. Okay, and remember, if you don't see it on the screen, navigate up top, right click, and locate it and put a check by it if it's not on the screen. We're going to click on the vector tool. I'm going to click the ellipse here, and from the center of this, if I left click and drag this out, it's going to do a perfect circle. And sometimes when you go in and you create these shapes, actually you'll find that the artwork may be off, and the artwork is not correct, and you'll find that more often than not. And feel free to go in and correct it, or if you can always make the shapes look better and nicer, feel free to do that, because that's just a part of the digitizing process, and you're trying to get this to look very nice for your customer. So now I've got my little tool here. Now this is just one way of doing this also. Pull this out a little bit here, so you can always tell when the artwork is going to be off. Again, just like I said, that happens frequently, especially if you're dealing with an artist that's not that doesn't know the stitching or the embroidery side of it, again, which is totally different than the graphic side of it. So with this, I've got my object on the screen. All I've got to do is navigate to my tatami stitch, and I'll left click it here. It's going to fill that in and change the color to red like this. If I want to, I could also add a border to this. Now, adding a border is going to allow me to go in, and I can navigate over here to my simple offset tool. I'm going to left click. It's going to open up the simple offset. I'm just going to go in. I want the spacing to be 0 on the line, and I want just one offset, and I'll click the down arrow here and choose satin column C and click OK. That'll go in, and it will add the border around here as I go in and left click. This fill type here. Now, something else I could have done also, I'm going to press S to hide the stitches. Something else I could have done also, I could have split these two sides into different sides here, and using a different stitch angle is another option that I had for that as well. But we're just going to go in and just use what we have here on the screen. If I want to hide the graphic in the background with the bitmap, I can press D. That will hide the graphic in the background. And so based on my stitch angle here, of course I want my starting point to be at a location, I want my exit point to be at a different location here. And so right now I'm going to go in, I'm going to press tab to advance it to where it's going to stitch next here. The shift tab goes backwards in sequence like you see here, and I'll enter this and I'll start here and save this. I'm also going to press S so that you can see the nice little round shape that we see here. I'm going to press S also here to hide the stitches, and I'm going to press D here to bring the graphic back here. Down the center of this, I have an option here also now, because of the size of this, and we're also going to go in because one of the most important thing to know when a customer sends you a job is you need to know what the finished size of the embroidery is. That'll tell you what you can and what you can't do on the fabric. Okay, so with this, we are going to adjust and change the size of this once we're done with this slightly. But right now, as we continue digitizing, I'm just going to go in now. These circles here, with these, because the design is going to be smaller, we're going to stitch these directly on top of the complex fill stitch. And so here we are, and I'm just going to go in and click on the ellipse tool, click the middle, drag it out, and press my control key because that's going to force it to do a perfect circle. left click, and I'm going to press enter. I'm going to press S. There's my object here. I'm going to select it, and I'm just going to choose the satin stitch. It's going to fill it in just like this. And again, we are going to adjust the size of this after we're done with it. I'm going to press D, and I'm just going to right click and drag here. I'm going to press my shift key down and increase the size of that one. Right click this again and drag it. Down the middle here, you have your column C stitch. Start here and go here and press. It still remembers the width. And that's what it looks like there. And on the other side of this, again, I can click on the fill, right click and drag it to duplicate it. This one, same thing, select, right click, hold the mouse button down and drag it. And same thing with this one here. Alright, so I got my objects in position here on the screen. And so now, with this, I'm going to save this. Okay, now I'm going to go in and I'm going to change the color here to black. And how you do that inside your program is you'll go in, you'll navigate to this option here, which is your colorway editor. I'm going to left click it here. It's going to open up my colorway editor here. I have changed this to the Madeira thread charts, and so when I go in, I choose my threads, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and click my thread charts here. Here's where you can go in and adjust it. Again, I click the thread charts here. It's going to open up your thread charts here, and you can select by clicking, and it'll, if I click here and click my little greater than here, it'll place that there, or you can send it back. Okay, but I'm using Madeira. I'll click OK. And what I want to happen here is with color number 15, I'll scroll down to color number 15. I want that to be black. So I'm going to go in here and type in my code, which I know is 1800, and I'm going to press enter, and it'll change that color to black. Okay, we'll do a colorway editor video as well with this to show you how that works as well, but right now I'm going to go ahead and save this. And so with this file here, I'm going to select it here now. I'm going to change this to US, and I'm going to make this 3 inches. Okay, and you can see how it changed the size of it dramatically. Okay, I'm going to save this also. I'm going to press D, and I'm going to press 0 here to zoom in close. So now I want to see what this thing looks like when it stitches out. So I'm going to navigate up, and I'm going to choose my stitch player. Let's see what it looks like. I'm kind of fast, so let me take it back to the start and go slower. So you see, again, with each color, you want to try to keep that needle on the fabric for as long as possible. And so if you're doing that, then you're making money. So here, as it goes in and the machine is running, this is the way that it's going to stitch this out. This goes in, it's going to fill those items in like this, and that's how this is going to work with this particular design. Very simple design, this one is. And again, we had the nice graphics in the background, which always helps. Yeah, it just makes the job easier when you have to go in and digitize something in this manner here, actually. So definitely helps. I'm going to speed this up a little bit now for that fill. Okay, so it goes in and fills that area in, then it goes in and does the outline. And it does the fills here in the back. To get past this, actually, or to get this off, you can click here, click stop, or you can click on your select object tool there also, or press escape. That also works. So we've gone in and we've digitized our little bug. And so that should be it for this particular video short. If you have any questions, you can always give us a call. And anything that needs to be edited with this, basically all you've got to do is just select, press the control key and click on the next object, and you can slide those over and rotate them, etc. Thank you so much for your time. As always, we ask that you join us at www.wilcomamerica.com. Thank you.